Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Global Intelligence Update. And joining us this week, Heather Cresswell. And for those that don't know who Heather is, let me give you guys a quick introduction. So Heather is the founder and the CEO of the Alchemy of Leadership. She is an internationally accredited coach and facilitator and best-selling Amazon author. Her work as a guest lecturer at the UCT Graduate School of Business has influenced hundreds of leaders to rethink and reimagine their leadership models. Heather has spoken at global platforms and is a developer of the Impact Blueprint for Purpose-Driven Leaders and the Code of the She-Wolf Community for Female CEOs. She has clients ranging from Mexico and the US to the UK and South Africa. After 30 years of working in the field of personal and professional development, Heather believes that leaders hold the key to healing the disconnection, loneliness, and burnout the majority of people are experiencing. She brings a unique combination of applied psychology, nature, spirituality, and practical strategies for leaders to make a positive impact they were born to make. Thank you so much, Heather, for joining us. And the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here today and so super excited to be sharing the Leadership Impact Blueprint with all of you today, especially because it's my new brand and I'm thrilled to be just sharing my new brand, my new look with all of you. So let me jump in here. So welcome to the Impact Blueprint for Purpose-Driven Leaders. It's wonderful to be sharing this because I think that today leaders are facing more challenges than ever before. And we are needing to find a new way of leading in this modern environment. Never before have we faced such a range of economic challenges, a sense of separation. Burnout is at the highest levels that it's ever been before. And I believe that leaders really have the opportunity to start to heal this sense of separation. Separation from ourselves, separation from our teams, from our organizations, from our communities, and from our environment. And it was because of these challenges that we are facing that I developed the Impact Blueprint. And the Impact Blueprint is a multidimensional leadership program that takes leaders on a journey from the inside out. Because the very first person that we have to lead, if we want to be purpose-driven leaders, if we want to make an impact, is to lead ourselves. And what that requires is it requires us to know who we are, to understand our identity, to live into the fullness of who we are meant to be. And I think that for so many of us, we're not sure who we are. You know, if you've ever come across an enlightened being or gone to see, a real master, the very first question that they ask you when they're looking into your eyes, and it's very confronting, is they ask you, who are you? Like, who are you really? And this is a lifelong question, but it's a quest that I think if we can go on to really know who we are, then we can make the impact that we were born to make. The second element is meaning. And for all of us that are here on this call, or if you're watching, there's no doubt in my mind that you are driven by a purpose. You know that you are here to make a difference. You're a conscious leader. You're led by your heart. You want to make that impact. And so we can create meaning in anything that we do. The thing that creates meaning for us is the attention that we give to something while we're doing it. But deeper than that, the meaning that we create comes out of our value system and what it is that we really value and what it is that we care about. And what we care about and how that translates is into the people that we impact and the people that are around us. And that is around our team and building a team of people around us that are supportive, that are inspired, that are with us in our journey to making this impact. And I know Lundy Jack always says 1 + 1 = 11. And if you have 11, it's like a doorway that you can walk through. And it's a doorway that you can walk through to make this impact and this difference that you are wanting to make. And the next one is action. And when we can take inspired action, that's when we are able to really move towards our vision with passion and with purpose and in alignment with our values. And then creating a culture of what I call courageous contribution. And if you're wanting to have a business that is able to make an impact, the people that are in that business need to feel that they are able to contribute to it. If you want a high-performing team around you, you want people to feel safe enough to make a contribution, to sometimes bring ideas that are against the norm, that are different. And so really creating that culture of courageous contribution and belonging that people are longing for in their business environments. And then the fifth and final one on the impact blueprint is to thrive. So how do we really thrive as individuals? How do we build a team that's thriving, that's able to navigate all of the uncertainty that is around us on an ongoing basis? And there's so much uncertainty around us externally at the moment in terms of the environments that we're in. There's wars going on, there's cybersecurity attacks, there's AI coming at us. There's so much going on externally that we need to be able to thrive as individuals and as organizations in this chaos that's happening around us, and really be the leaders that show the way through the chaos. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a bit of a deep dive into each of these different elements and speak through them. And if you've got any questions, pop them into the chat and then we'll unpack them a little bit later. So our identity, this is really the internal journey, and understanding your interior landscape is a construct, and it's a construct that's based on patterns. And these patterns are generational patterns. Sitting in your DNA is all of the experiences that every single one of your ancestors has had. And that is playing out, and it becomes your energetic signature. They're actually now doing studies to show how what's in your DNA at a cellular level is actually in the field, in your field of energy that's around you. We have cultural patterns. If we've been brought up in a particular culture, those patterns are going to leave an imprint on us. They're going to leave their mark on us. And our community is going to have contributed. You know, we start to build these patterns from the moment we are conceived. And in the first 7 years, the first 6 to 7 years of our life, our brain is in what is known as a theta brainwave frequency. And when we're in a theta brainwave frequency, there's no filter. So all of the messaging that we receive during those early formative years just goes straight into our hard drive. And it sits in our hard drive and it plays out in our lives in unconscious patterns, and it becomes our identity. And then, of course, all of the messages that we got from our parents, whether we were acknowledged and appreciated by our parents, or if we were, told by our parents that we weren't good enough or we weren't going to amount to anything, or our teachers told us those messages, all go into our patterning. And then also from the experiences that we've had in our life. So any experience that you've had in your life that has landed on you or made an impact on you, no matter what age you are, is going to become part of your patterning. And so much of this patterning sits in our unconscious. And if you just look at this model, we very much like icebergs. You know, nature reflects back, the microcosm and the macrocosm reflects back to us who we are. And so we only really conscious 10% of our levels of consciousness. And this is obviously quite a broad levels of consciousness. There are many more levels than just 2 levels of consciousness, but we're just going to talk about conscious and unconscious. So like an iceberg where you can only see 10% on the top, what we see in the world is we see our actions in the world and we see the results that we get based on the actions that we take. But driving these actions are our beliefs, positive and negative beliefs, our values, our assumptions that we make about life, about relationships, about business, our history or her history, and the story that we tell about our lives and about the events that have happened to us, the talents that we have, the strengths that we've got, and whether we had our needs met when we were growing up. And in the years and years of personal development work that I've done, there are very, very few people that I've met that have had all of their needs met. And so all of this is sitting in our unconscious, driving the actions and the results that we take. And so our journey is to take a deep dive into our unconscious, to excavate what are our beliefs, what are our values, what are we assuming that is possibly untrue and that's limiting us, that's sitting in our unconscious. You know, you can see how powerful the unconscious is when you get into your car and you drive to your office and you've got no idea how you got there. Your unconscious was driving it. And so in order to understand who we are, we need to take this journey into our unconscious and find out what our beliefs are, find out what we really, truly value, and whether what's sitting in our unconscious is still serving us, because it might be time for a new identity. If you want to reach your vision, if you want to reach your goal, if you want to make that big impact, the question is not how you're going to do it. The question is, who do you need to be in order to get to that vision and in order to get to your goal? And so this little bunny here has had to make quite a big change to her or his identity. And this is the snowshoe hare. And the snowshoe hare lives in Washington and in Montana. And it's a rare being, because during summer it's brown, and then during winter it changes its identity so that it doesn't get eaten and it becomes white. But what started to happen now is global warming is having a massive impact on that area. And so snow no longer falls during winter, or it doesn't fall as much. And so you can see this little bunny's identity is no longer serving it as a white bunny. And incredibly enough, many of these rabbits in a very short space of time have changed their identity so that they're no longer molting when winter comes. And so instead of being white against this brown backdrop, which of course all the predators just absolutely love, they're actually now staying brown during winter. And this for me was just an incredible example of how we need to shift our identity in order to not be eaten, in order to not be taken out by bigger businesses as we're growing our businesses, but so that we can flourish in the new environments that we're finding ourselves in. And so this is the beautiful blueprint that I think that we can work with from an identity perspective, where if we choose to just change one element of our identity, whether it's a toxic thought that you're having in your mind, whether it is a focus on health or getting fit in your body, or shifting a negative emotion that you're realizing that you're experiencing every day into one of gratitude, in terms of getting in touch with your spirit, of a sense of belonging to something so much bigger than yourself. just changing one element of your identity and allowing your mind to shine, your body to shine, your emotions to shine, and your spirit to shine, this creates a feedback loop. So if you shift something in your body, it shifts something in your mind in the way that you think. If you change your thoughts, you get a new cascade of chemicals coming through your body that's going to change the way that you feel. And so when we do this work, this deep work of creating an identity, then we can really shine the light, our light into the world and make a very, very powerful difference to the people that we come in contact with and in our businesses, and truly make that impact that we want to make. And then the second element of the blueprint is meaning. And I think that what really allows us to live a meaningful life and to create a meaningful business is if we can craft our core values. And I speak a lot about core values because our core values are much deeper than the general values that most organizations or most people operate at. And a general value would be a value like family might be a high value for you. But in order to understand what the core value is that sits underneath that is what is the feeling that you experience when you are with your family? What is the feeling that you experience? Is it love? Is it connection? Is it a sense of belonging? And so the first element in the craft value model is to get clarity on your core values, because this is going to allow you to put in place the rules of engagement. So if you have a high value on energy, then that you may have a rule that, so it's a rule for me, that I'm not going to do business with any organization that is unhealthy. So, for example, sorry if anybody was with British American Tobacco, but if they had to come and say to me, you know, we'd like you to work with you, I'd have to decline because energy is one of my highest values. And so for me, I would have a disalignment of values in working in an organization like that, unless it was to help them exit the market. And then we can take actions that are in alignment with those rules. So it gives us a blueprint and a really, really powerful decision-making tool in order to take actions that are in alignment with our deepest core values. And then sitting and after actions, once we take those actions, it allows us to feel those core values more. So those we have more energy, we experience more love, we experience more contribution, we experience more connection. So whatever it is that your core value is, you start to experience more of it because you take actions in alignment with it. And what this does is it builds deep, deep feelings of trust. And that's really a deep trust in yourself, but it's also for your clients to trust you when they see that you act in alignment with your values, for your team to trust you because you take actions in alignment with your values, and for your business to really trust your leadership, that you're not going to make decisions that are going to compromise those core values. And that's what brings real meaning to our lives, when we can actually live in alignment with our core values. And then that relates into people, because if we aren't able to lead ourselves and lead the people around us, there is no ways that we can make that massive impact that we want to make. We won't be able to influence people if we don't have this deep sense of identity. And our sense of identity comes through in our leadership presence, the way that we are in the world, the way that we have a personal brand that shines through, that's part of your identity. Your presence in terms of the attention that you bring, that you are able to create and facilitate an environment where you are able to mine the collective wisdom of your team. So many people have inspired ideas. They sit around their boardroom tables, wanting to contribute, wanting to share their wisdom. but the environment isn't set up for them to be able to do that. And so it's your responsibility as a leader to set up an environment where people are able to make that contribution. And one of the most powerful ways that you can set up that environment is to pay deep attention to your team's thinking, to their feeling, to who they are, to listen to them out of a place of curiosity, to listen to them where you're stepping out of the world of listening to respond into the world of listening to ignite their thinking. There's been the most incredible studies that have been shown that when we are listened to in this place of deep attention, that it actually affects our ability to think for ourselves. Blood actually flows up into the higher thinking centers of our brain in this context and in this environment of attention, appreciation, curiosity, and respect. And that's when we really get the best from people. We get their input, we get their contribution. And I can't, maybe you can think back, when was the last time you were ever able to finish a thought before being interrupted? When was the last time you were able to really think about an idea before you were interrupted, either by your cell phone or by somebody jumping in and finishing your sentence for you? Because we're so trained to listen from a place of responding. As I'm speaking, you're already curating your response. And my kids, when I started this work, they were teenagers, and it can be quite challenging raising a teenager. And then we would practice this, and I'd be giving them deep attention, and then they would say something quite radical. And then, my daughter would say to me, "Mom, you're interrupting me with your face." And it was like just this, we're interrupting all the time. And there's something very powerful that happens when you actually hear yourself think out loud. It's very different to going to circling round and round in your mind. And so these are just some of the key things under people, developing the people around you that you can bring to your leadership to make more of an impact. And then we need to take action. We have to have this vision that is going to pull us towards where we want to go, that's going to enable us to deal with the rocky and challenging patches, that it's so powerful and so potent that we don't care what's standing in our way. We're going to just move those boulders out of the way, and we're going to move towards that vision. And your vision has to come from your heart. And there is a very powerful reason for saying that, because if your vision is just a nice idea, you won't be able to take the inspired action in order to reach that vision. And there's scientific proof around this, because if you measure your heart, so if any of you have ever been to the doctor and had an ECG, and they put those electrodes on you, and you start to see your heart rhythm that is on a sheet of paper, or if you've ever had a brain scan and they put those electrodes on your brain, and you can see your brainwave frequencies on the scan. Well, there's this very, very beautiful thing that happens between our hearts and our brains that's called coherence. And coherence is the situation when your brainwave frequency and your heart wave frequency is in this beautiful pattern. And we actually feel this coherence inside us. It's a state that we move into when we're in flow. It's the state that we move into when we're in meditation. But the very, very interesting thing is that your heart frequency, which actually, by the way, can be measured up to 2 meters around your body, will never, ever move into alignment to match your brainwave frequency. It is only your brain frequency that changes to move into alignment with your heart frequency. So what this means is that when you vision from your heart, when you have this vision that comes out of your sense of purpose, out of this heartfelt desire to make an impact, your brainwave frequency and your mind starts to come into service of that vision. And that's when you get those beautiful, inspired ideas. That's when you have those aha moments. Sure, I wonder if I just did this. Or you think of a person and then they phone you. That's when that inspiration starts to happen and you start to take that inspired action because your mind is coming into service of the heart. And so out of that inspired action, out of those inspired ideas, you then develop your personal priority plan. And you stay focused on taking that inspired action, which leads to better outcomes, which leads to more inspiration. And it becomes this powerful cycle. And before you know it, you're starting to tick off that vision or those goals along the way to your vision. And then the next thing that you need is to create the culture for that to happen, to create the culture for that inspired action and for that inspiration to happen. And like I said before, this culture of courageous contribution where you're getting everybody's input, where people are feeling inspired, they're feeling motivated. And more importantly than anything, they're feeling safe enough to express themselves and to be their authentic selves. And so the first thing that we do in terms of creating this culture of courageous contribution is to look at values alignment. So looking at how do your core values as a member of this team align with the business values. And this is such a powerful process because when you start to see how what you care about is the work that you're doing, then you're living in a world of inspiration. You don't need external motivation. You can see how your work or how your business or how the organization is the vehicle for the expression of what you care about the most. And this creates such power in terms of team and in terms of performance. And then to create a culture of belonging. And this is it's a difficult thing to do because so many of us feel, or so many leaders and so many teams and so many people are feeling this sense of disconnection. They don't really have a sense of belonging to themselves. But if you're willing to do the work of that identity, of unpacking those things that are sitting in your unconscious, you can develop a very powerful sense of belonging to yourself and then extend that out into the organization where people are made to feel welcome, where there's a curiosity about how you feel, what you say, people are able to see you, they're able to hear you, and you are able to be your authentic self. I always have this vision that we part of this divine puzzle. And when we are really being our truly authentic selves, we have the sense of belonging and we become like beautiful puzzle pieces that fit together to create this connection that is present between all of us. It's present between the world we live in, nature, and ourselves. And when we're not being our authentic selves, we're trying to change that puzzle piece. And so we don't fit. We don't have that sense of belonging. And so being given permission in an organization or in a business to really be yourself is the most powerful permission that I think that anybody could give. And it allows us to build that puzzle that's so much more powerful than one puzzle piece standing on its own. And this allows people to take calculated risks. And we need to innovate. We're living in a world where, there's so much coming at us. There's AI, there's new economies, we're under attack all the time. And so we need to fail forward, we need to fail fast, we need to innovate, we need to try new things. And we need to have an environment where success and failure is as celebrated as each other, because we can learn much more from the failures that we have than from the success that we have. And so it's creating this environment of calculated risk. And then in order to do this, we've got to really welcome difference. And one of the things that leaders are really being challenged with at the moment is the difference in their teams. It's generational differences. You've got baby boomers dealing with digital natives. They're speaking a different language. They operate on different platforms. They work in very different ways. And so doing things like having reverse mentoring, having sideways mentoring in your team. We've got differences in genders. We've got differences in cultures. And much more importantly for me, we've got differences in thinking, and we need to welcome that. You know, how many times do you walk into a bookstore and you pick up a book and you look at it and you go, oh no, I don't agree with that, and you put the book down and you don't buy it. My invitation to you is to pick up that book, don't agree with it, buy it and read it. Because it's that different thinking that is going to give you a different perspective. And so one of the most powerful values that I think that any organization can have is the value of curiosity. Let's stay curious about who we are. Let's stay curious about other people's thinking, about other people's cultures. Put yourself in those different situations and go and welcome it. You know, if we look at nature, nature is unbelievably diverse. We are the only people, or the only species that wants to seek sameness, wants to hang out with people that are all the same as us. And so this is an invitation for you to welcome that difference and really open your mind and go and explore, because that is going to allow you to thrive. And the first element of being able to thrive is to move out of unconscious reactivity into conscious creativity. And what I mean by that is that when you are faced with a challenge, a person, a situation where you feel yourself reacting, we all have those patterns of reaction, and it sits in our unconscious, is to think about, what about if I had to respond to this in a different way? What if I just stopped right now? And instead of having that same old reaction that I always have when I have that particular button pushed, let me think about, what is a new response that I could have? What's a new thought that I could have? What is a new action that I can take? Instead of withdrawing from the situation, can I move towards it? Can I do something that's completely opposite to the way that I usually respond? If I'm feeling criticized by this person, instead of reacting and pushing what it is that they're saying away from me, is it possible for me to become more curious about what it is that they're actually saying to me and be open to exploring this feedback that I'm receiving? And so that's really when you understand your patterns and you understand what's driving you at an unconscious level and you understand what's happening, then you can really move into this place of conscious creativity. And you can get a very, very different outcome if you're willing to move. This is really what it is. When people say get out, step out of your comfort zone, your patterns, your unconscious patterns is your comfort zone. Moving into conscious creativity is where you're going to grow outside of that comfort zone. And so, when we doing this course and I'm taking leaders through this program, obviously we dive into this at a much, much deeper level. And then in order to thrive, we have to be willing to adapt. We have to have the mindset that allows us to try new things. We have to have the mindset that is allowing us to pay attention to what is going on around us, and to never, ever, ever, ever say, well, this is the way we've always done it. Maybe that is the way that you've always done it, and maybe it's time now to do it in a completely different way. And so that mindset, that growth mindset of always being willing to learn, of always being willing to be open, of always being willing to own what you don't know. We know so little, and yet we walk around pretending that we know everything and we know so much. And so it's really allowing us to open ourselves up to learning and to adapting to what is happening around us. And then in order to thrive, we have to pay attention to the cycle of regeneration. We live so deeply outside of the cycles of nature. You know, we talk about high performance. I mean, I look at and love working with high performing teams. We can't be high performing 24/7. We have to rest. We have to sleep. We have to regenerate our energy. And there's numerous ways of doing it. We can regenerate our energy throughout the day. We can regenerate our energy throughout the week. We can move into this monthly cycles that the planet has and become aware of how we're responding to the pull of the moon. I mean, this last full moon that we have, it creates chaos. We made up of the same water that is in the planet. We're going to be impacted by the way that the planet's moving, the way that the moon is impacting on us. And so being conscious of taking energetic breaks during the day, being conscious of making sure that you're getting incredible sleep, making sure that you're taking breaks in winter, that you notice the change in your circadian rhythms and you move into those circadian rhythms that are actually being fed back to us by our environment. And I was blown away. I've been watching Our Living, I think it's called Our Living World. It's either Our Living World or Our Living Planet. And my kids live in Nevada. And so I get to fly over the Sierra Nevada when I'm going to go and visit them. And you fly over these masses of pine forests. And these pine forests are under incredible threat at the moment. They're in the worst drought that they've had, I think, in their history. And what that means is that there's this little insidious creature called a pine beetle, and it makes me think of being under cyber attack. And it tries to drill into the bark of the pine trees. And if there's enough water in flowing up and down the pine trees, then the pine tree is able to produce gum, which prevents the beetle from burrowing into the bark. But because they're in such a drought, there isn't any water that is flowing up and down these pine trees in the way that it used to. And so they can't produce the gum. And so these beetles go in and they literally destroy these trees from the inside out. And what that does is that it means that these trees, these massive forests, become matchsticks. And so I'm sure that you've heard of these raging California fires that have taken place all the way through to Nevada. Last summer, I mean, they closed my grandchildren's schools because they couldn't go to school because there was so much smoke and there was so much ash. But the most incredible thing is happening with these trees because these forests are on a march northwards. Their seeds and their roots are traveling north, and new trees are growing all the way up the Sierra Nevada, right up into Canada, where there is more water, where there's still that snowfall that's creating the water so that these trees are able to survive. And I was just blown away by this drive of life to regenerate and to continue. And so that's what we have to do. Maybe we've got to change our environment. Maybe we've got to move into new territories in our businesses in order to thrive. You know, we can learn so much from nature. And then the final thing is called alchemy. And that is really, you know, why I called my business the alchemy of leadership, because it's taking all of these elements, all the elements of yourself, all of the metal, whether it's gray or whether it's rusting, and working with it and putting it into this gourd that is the alchemy pot. And out of that, creating this incredible leadership model, creating this identity that is you, creating these teams around you, creating these businesses and organizations that can go out there and can make the impact that your heart longs for, that can really allow you to fulfill this purpose, your beautiful, unique purpose that you came onto this planet to fulfill. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. And thank you for being with me and for your beautiful, beautiful attention. I really felt it. that allowed me to think well, and yeah, absolutely open to any questions or any comments that you'd like to make or share. I'd love to hear from you and from all of you.
Wow, Heather, thank you so much. What a presentation, and very, very interesting, I have to say, especially about the heart. I found that so interesting. Yeah, the rhythm.
Yeah, it's
Also saying that was amazing. Philippe commented, said it's a clever bunny.
Yes. Well, thanks for your iceberg, Philippe. I actually used that in one of my slides on the actual course. It really does reflect back at us this conscious and unconscious elements of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions on anything?
See, Lynette also put in the chat box, love the presentation, so inspired by the elements. Greg as well, wow, incredibly insightful. I agree, Greg. I agree, very, very nice.
Awesome.
Looks like it was such a good presentation. No questions. Oh, well, if there's no questions, I just want to thank Heather for being here today and sharing her insight and her knowledge, as well as everyone that's on the call live, and then everyone that's watching the video and also the podcast offline. Thank you to everyone, and I hope you guys have a great week ahead. Thanks again, Heather.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Cheers, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Everyone.